Hello and welcome. Today we're going big. Literally. We're talking about mega projects, those huge dams, massive bridges, and sprawling transport systems that basically build the world around us. But, for every single success, there are these incredible stories of failure. So we're going to dive into the book, The Strategic Management of Large Engineering Projects, to figure out why these gigantic plans go so spectacularly wrong and what we can actually do about it.
We as a species have always loved to build big. For 2,000 years, things like this incredible Roman aqueduct have been these monuments to our ambition. But here's the thing the book points out. While that impulse to build is ancient, today, the sheer scale, the complexity, and the money, have raised the stakes to a completely different level.
And this quote from the book, it just lays it all out. We're not just talking about a project going a little over budget anymore. No. We're talking about risks that are so huge, they can literally bankrupt corporations and shake the economies of entire countries. So this isn't just some engineering puzzle. It's a high-stakes strategic game.
And just to give you a sense of how big this problem really is, look at this number. The research in the book shows this is the typical range of cost overruns on these huge projects. And no, that is not a typo. Some projects end up costing 7 times what they were supposed to. This isn't a fluke, it's a pattern that happens so often you can almost bet on it.
Which brings us to the real head-scratcher the book tries to answer. With all our modern technology, our fancy management techniques, and our absolutely brilliant engineers, why do we keep getting it so wrong? Why do these massive, critical projects just consistently spiral out of control?
Okay, let's really get into this, because this is the heart of the whole book. The usual story you hear blames the stuff you can see. The technical glitches, the problems with contractors on site, all that stuff. But what the authors argue is that the real problem, the root cause of the failure, is hidden way back in what they call the front end. The big takeaway is this: the war is won or lost before the first battle is even fought. It's all about the strategic planning and shaping that happens long, long before a single shovel ever breaks ground.
So if the problem is baked in during that early strategic phase, well, the solution has to be there too, right? And the book doesn't just point out the problem, it actually offers a new blueprint for how to succeed, a kind of strategic toolkit for getting that super important front end right.
Now, check this out. This is where things get really fascinating. This slide shows the average timeline for one of these mega projects, based on the book's research. And just look at that. The search phase, that's the strategic front end we've been talking about, lasts on average 79 months. That's over 6.5 years. And the actual construction sprint is way shorter. This just shows you how absolutely massive and critical that early planning period really is.
And that brings us to this key idea of project shaping. The authors say that in that long front end, the most important work isn't just designing the building or the bridge itself. It's about designing the entire environment for the project to succeed. It's about shaping the rules of the game, building the right teams, and mapping out every possible risk. The seeds of success, or the roots of a spectacular failure, are all planted right here.
A huge part of that shaping process is learning to see risk in a totally new way. It's not just one big storm you can brace for. It's more like a complex, multidimensional landscape. And successful projects don't just try to manage risk. First, they take the time to actually map this whole landscape of challenges, market, technical, and social.
And mapping that landscape means you have to unbundle all the different kinds of risks. It's not just about the technical stuff like, hey, can we physically build this? It's about market risks. Will anyone actually use this new highway? And this is a huge one, institutional and social risks. What happens if a new government gets elected and just scraps the whole thing? Or what if the public suddenly turns against it? Each of these needs a totally different game plan. Okay, so you can plan for the risks you can see coming. That makes sense. But what about the curveballs? The things that come completely out of left field, the stuff you couldn't possibly predict? How do you build a project that can survive the truly unexpected, what some people call the unknown unknowns?
The book has this brilliant answer for that question, and it's a concept called governability. Honestly, the best way to think about it is like a project's immune system. It's not about trying to predict every single virus that could possibly come along. It's about building the internal strength and flexibility to fight off infections when they inevitably show up. It's about a project's ability to steer its way through total chaos.
So how do you actually build this immune system? Well, it's not just about wishful thinking. The book shows it's done through specific strategic tools. For example, to manage the relationships between all the partners, you need to structure the ownership so there's one clear, strong leader.
To handle financial shocks, you get your money from a bunch of different places. You don't put all your eggs in one basket. And with your contractors, you write in what they call rendezvous clauses, which is just a smart way of building in moments to renegotiate when things, inevitably go sideways.
Okay, so we've gone through the front end. Project shaping, governability, these are big ideas. But what does all this theory mean for us in our day-to-day reality? Why does it matter? Well, here's the bottom line. The infrastructure we all depend on every single day, the airports we fly out of, the bridges we drive over, the power that keeps our lights on, their very existence isn't just a feat of good engineering. They are the final outcome of these huge strategic battles that were fought years earlier in boardrooms, in government offices, and in public meetings. A successful project is a triumph of strategy. So I'll leave you with this thought. The next time you hear about a new subway line getting planned, or a high-speed rail project, or some massive new stadium for your city, remember that long front end and ask yourself, are they getting the strategy right? Because as this book makes crystal clear, that project's ultimate fate, whether it becomes an amazing public asset or just a big, expensive mistake, is probably being sealed right now, long before a single shovel ever breaks ground.